My name is Osman, and this is how I found the truth. My country fell into civil war. It started in 1990 and really escalated by 94. We had rivalry warlords that were trying to gain control when the government imploded. Due to that, my family had to leave. Somalis had a difficult choice that they had to make. They either had to go through the country up to Somaliland, or they had to go through the country and then risk being either robbed or children taken or killed, sadly. And so my family chose to go down near the coast on a boat. It took us 3 days, and in the midst of the traveling, on the second day, sadly, our boat tipped over. My father grabbed my mother and my younger brother. My two older sisters grabbed me and my younger sister. And sadly, that left my twin brother alone, and he drowned. Eventually, we got the boat back, tipped back over. We grabbed as much possessions as we could that could float, and we made our way to the Kenyan border. Once we got there, I was still emotionally broken by what just happened and the experience of losing my twin brother, that I was still emotionally distraught. At the border patrol, the gentleman felt the only way to get me to stop was to take his cigarette and burn it into my arm. That's the sad reality of civil war and trauma. Children don't know how to grasp it like adults do. I lost someone that's been there my whole life, and so yeah, I couldn't process it at that time. We stayed at the refugee camp in Nairobi for about 3 months. My parents couldn't take the conditions of it, and so we left to live with friends and family in Egypt. Then we moved on to France to stay with my aunt. By then, I had turned 6. We came to America. And then finally, we made our final destination, which was Minneapolis. We got really connected into the community. And so I immediately got enrolled into an Islamic school every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 4. That's what I spent doing. When I was 14 years old, I did my recitation where I had to sit down in front of clerics that flew in from Saudi Arabia, and basically they would open the first page of the Quran and then they would shut it, and then I would have to continue reciting it. The best way to put it is like memorizing a 4-hour song. My fellow classmates, Abdullah Muhammad, finished theirs in 3 hours and some minutes, but mine was 4 hours and 36 minutes. As a reward for memorizing the Quran, me, Abdullah Muhammad, and then other fellow students were given a free trip to Saudi Arabia by the Saudi government. When we came back from Mecca, I didn't have a desire to become an imam, but I had a desire to now share Islam with others. And I was very fortunate that my best friend at the time was a Christian who went to a youth group that kept inviting me to come. And so I then took the invitation to go to youth group with my own intention of converting them. This is my first exposure to youth group from a Christian point of view. In Islam, it's different. Prayer is scripted. It's 5 times a day, and you pray certain prayers. So to hear teenagers openly and directly speaking to God was totally foreign to me. But God was really softening my heart. So much so, the youth pastor walks up and goes, "Hey, next week we are studying Abraham taking his son to be a burnt offering. Would you like to come?" And Abraham is like a huge pillar for me as a Muslim. And so I said yes. I show up the next week, and we open up to Abraham taking his son. And as soon as they got to Isaac, I immediately put the Bible down and said, "Excuse me, but you're wrong. It was Ishmael." And he goes, "We believe in Christianity that Abraham took his son Isaac to be burnt offering, not Ishmael. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask my boss, Dave." It took me 3 months to read the Bible, cover to cover. And as I read it, I felt that there was a lot of inconsistencies and inaccuracies of what happened because of my Islamic upbringing. So I literally just took them and started ripping them right out of the Bible. I had naturally started forming questions. So I did what every good Muslim teenager would do. I took my questions in the Bible to the mosque, and I presented them to what we call professor in the Somali word. But I got hit for the first time, like in the face. That has never happened. And he told me, do not ever bring this back into our building. That shocked me because I've never experienced that kind of anger and animosity before. And so I went to the next source of a Christian authority that I knew, and that was my best friend's dad, Dave, who's the senior pastor, who I felt comfortable to ask questions. The first time I met Dave was dinner at his house. Typical questions that you ask during dinner were asked, like, so what's your name? Then the follow-up question is, what do you do for a living? And Dave responds with, well, I'm a pastor. And me, I asked him, what's it like to send people to hell for a living? Because that's what I was taught. Dave politely responds back, well, that's a great question, and I would love to answer that. You're welcome to visit my office anytime, but for now, could you pass the peace? Lo and behold, years later, I then come to his office. I sit down. Dave is a little bit guarded. And then I finally just tell him, I've read this cover to cover. I don't know who else to ask, but I have questions. And so that started a 3-year journey where we met one-on-one every Friday at the church. It was difficult because for me, it wasn't just a head knowledge, but rather a heart. And the consequences for me to follow Jesus meant I had to give something up. And the reality was it was my family. Growing up in Islam, I had to earn salvation and question if I was saved. But the beauty of the gospel and resting in what Jesus did was difficult. It took me 3 years because I really wrestled with, I don't have to do anything, but rather Christ did everything. And it took me 3 years to receive that free gift. But it's the best gift I've ever received. Our church had a baptismal, and the way that baptisms work is it happens after church, with family and friends staying behind. Because I felt no one would stay, or no one would be interested, I asked if I could get baptized at the lake. What I thought was just going to be a small gathering ended up being the whole church, which was about 400 people screaming and yelling at the top of a hill while I was getting baptized. It was a beautiful moment. My freshman year, I got really involved with campus ministry, and due to that, I got invited to go on a mission trip to San Diego. And then when I told my parents that I'm going on a mission trip, my parents told me, take everything that you want. You are dead to us, and you are no longer part of our family. And during that 10 weeks, my whole extended family called from Canada, from Norway, and all around the US, telling me I'm no longer part of the family. And so to hear from everyone that I was no longer part of the family was really hard. I was very fortunate that I was surrounded by brothers and sisters in Christ as I took this news and lamented the loss. Yes, I lost my relationship with my family, but my family in Christ has grown so much, and it took me a while to realize that blood on the inside is not as powerful as blood on the outside. Christ's blood covers all of us, and because of that, I get to call all Christians my brothers and sisters, and that family is so much more than what I lost.
A surprise for you. So we have someone who wants to talk to you.
Oh, hey Dave.
Hi, Osman.
There you go.
How's it
Can
going?
you hear me?
Yeah,
You've had quite a journey, right?
I did.
Yeah. And we've been on the journey together.
Yeah.
And it's been awesome to see how much you have grown and matured, both as a person and in your faith. And we're very proud of you for what God has done in your life and what He's continuing to do.
Oh,
And so, well done.
oh,
Well
thank you.
done.
Yeah, I'm not crying, you're crying. Oh,
By the way, I can't hear you.
I love this. That's awesome. Well, I thank you. Oh, that was encouraging. My name is Osman, and I'm from Somalia, and I found the truth.